My brother, who do we have with us today?
This station is we're groundbreaking for introducing new artists to the world, and we take pleasure in that because we know that the kingdom only gets better when we're pulling people up and when we're pushing people and we're helping people. This young man has a wonderful single out. He is a former track and field athlete. Y'all know I'm a track and field person, and he's doing some wonderful work in the music ministry. Ladies and gentlemen, you will know who he is after today, the one and only Alex Ward. Welcome to the Wake Up Morning Show.
Good morning. How y'all doing?
We are blessed, blessed, blessed.
That's good. That's good.
Well, good morning to you, young man. We just want to find out a little bit about yourself, where you're from, who your people is, what you about.
Well, my name is Alex Ward. I'm originally from Winter Haven, Florida. My folks, my mother, I'm shout out my parents. Of course, they are the reasons why I'm here today, and why I have the foundation that I have. So my mom's name is Charlene Wilson, and my dad's name is Aaron Wilson. And my foundation is built on the structure of being a church kid.
Like
A
us.
lot of a lot of us have grown up in the church, and I'm not gonna say necessarily walked away from what our foundation is, but that's sometimes the process that we go through as church kids. So I've raised in the church, took a different route within athleticism, and then God brought me back home to be to walk in my purpose as far as ministry. So that's what I am doing now currently. So I'm excited to see what God's going to do in my future. I honestly don't know what that looks like as of now, but I'm expecting great things. So
Well, young man, I just have to get some qualifications here, of how churchy you really were and how churchy a kid you were. Had you ever gotten a whooping at church?
oh yeah, plenty.
Okay, okay, yeah, you're a church kid,
What?
you know.
Where'd you grow up at? What kind of church did you grow up in?
See, I grew up kind of in the Pentecostal realm. My grandfather was Baptist, so that's where my foundation is.
Hmm.
But as I would say about 6 or 7, we went to Pentecostal where my uncle, he's actually my current pastor back home in Florida, Alonzo Smith. So we Pentecostal. I ride with Pentecostal all day long.
Now, what's the name of the church?
It's called New Divine Church of God by Faith.
All
Sounds
right.
sanctified and Pentecostal.
Yes, yes, yes. So, are you the music minister there, or are you just a member?
Well, I'm just a member. I don't live currently in Florida. When I went off to college in Alabama, I'm here. I actually live in Decatur, Alabama, but I went to school in Huntsville, Alabama, at the illustrious Alabama A&M. So, you know, I'm here in the Decatur area where I am the music director at the Fellowship of Faith Church, where Pastor Troy Gardner is our pastor.
Now, I want to say that
Track and
I
field.
want to bless the name of the Lord for all of you all that sojourn in the Alabama area. There's a couple of places that I have been avoiding
Uh oh.
most of my life.
Mm-hmm.
One was Alabama, and the other one was Mississippi. But one of the conferences that I have to go to this year is going to be in Mobile, Alabama. So for a city fella from California, you have any advice of survival skills of where I should not go or what
Oh
I should
Lord.
not say being in Alabama?
Well, I'm not really. I'm not gonna say I'm too aware of the things because when I say I'm not an introvert, but I'm more so I stay where I'm at. You know, in Decatur, I would tell you all day come to Huntsville. It's a good relaxed place. But as far as the outer cities and areas, I'm not too familiar with them. I'm
Hmm.
starting to get familiar with them as I travel and stuff like that. But I have heard Birmingham is a dangerous place, so
Hmm.
I would say stay away from Birmingham.
Stay away from Birmingham so
Praise
you
the
won't
Lord.
be.
Well,
be
see, I'm going to the source of somebody that's experiencing it right now.
yes.
Thank you, young man, because Robert Earl Dean always will act like, "Well, you being extra," but I'm just, ever since I saw Mississippi burning, I
Hmm.
said, "No, no, that is
Well,
just not for me."
remember, I
Because
lived in Arkansas.
ever since they did what they did to Emmett Till, I'm like saying,
That's true.
"No, I gotta be careful," because
Even
I,
more now. Even more
yeah,
so now these
I
days.
have a mouth, and they be like saying, "Make America great again." I'm like saying, well, it ain't happening. I had to challenge him on that. But
Yeah.
anyway, now that
Right.
we digress and go
Yes.
back in, so you are in Alabama,
Yes.
and you're a minister of music at your church. How did you transition into the gospel industry as an artist?
Well, I'm not gonna say it was necessarily a transition because even through all my, my days of being an athlete, that was still my foundation. All my teammates knew I was a church boy at heart. I was the one that prayed for the team before we traveled, before we competed and stuff like that. And that's really my lifestyle. I've always been a worshiper since I was a kid. From the childhood experiences and trauma that I have personally dealt with, that was my safe place. So, worship was always a lifestyle for me. Now, as an adult, experiencing the things that I have experienced as, from a kid to a teenager, now being a young adult, it's just like, I'm glad that I stayed rooted in it because coming from being an athlete where it's all fun until you either get injured or those days are just over.
Hmm.
Those days are just over for me. I got
Hmm.
two kids now, so I can't go get on no track and run like I used to when I was a little younger than what I am now. So that transition, it was really much smooth because I've always had a hard work ethic and I've always been very intentional with everything that I do. So it was more so of, closing that door while I already had others open because, I was already, I had a foundation in it. So it was just like, okay, let me just close that door and, stay here in this aspect of my life and, see what God wants me to do. And, I remember one night when I first really accepted my call, I'm a minister as well. When I first accepted my call, I was literally laying in my bed. I had a long day at work, and I was asking God. I was like, God, what is it that you want me to do? I don't want to work a 9 to 5. And the reality of it is in today's society, I'm a musician, so musicians don't like working 9 to 5s. You want to be full-time musicians, and sometimes that's not a reality for a lot of us.
True.
When you have responsibilities that you have to take care of, and you got children, you got mouths to feed, you got bills to pay. My generation, we live expensive lives that sometimes we write checks that we can't cash. So
Hmm.
God just showed me that you can operate in ministry but still keep your job. You know, always have something to necessarily fall on because as the musician today, your position ain't always you can have it today and it be gone tomorrow. So, you know, accepting my call into ministry was, you know, something that I feel like God wanted me to do a long time ago. I just wasn't spiritually mature to understand that, hey, that's God's talking. That's God talking to me. That's God showing me what He wants me to do in life. Where I want to hold on to, running track all my life, being a professional athlete. I
Hmm.
tried it, and God allowed me to get hurt. And a lot of people say, why you say God allowed you to
I
get
believe
hurt?
that.
God didn't want me to do that. So, my mom had always told me one of these days you're gonna have a mic in your hand, you're gonna be ministering to people that's your age and younger, and you know, they always say listen to mama. We ain't gonna listen to mama when we young and want to do what we want to do. But now that I'm older, I can always sit back and say, my mama and daddy was right. It may make me cringe a little bit having to say that, but that's just the reality of today's life. Our parents, they experience the things that we're going to experience. They see things before we see it because they know us. So that transition was very smooth because it was what I needed in order for me to be where I am now.
Now, having went away to college myself, away from California, going to Arkansas, and you leaving Florida to go to Alabama, how was it being a light on a campus? HBCUs are known for, so many things, good and bad. It's part of
Right.
life. But how did you handle yourself amongst this? Everything going on around you and you being an athlete because athletes tend to have a chip on their shoulder and arrogant and everything's about me. How did you stay rooted and grounded in your foundation?
Well, for foremost, I'm always myself. I don't lie. I'm not. My mom and dad always don't be gullible to where you have to change who you are to fit in, and I've never been the type to fit in. I don't mind being set apart. So when I first came out here, it was different.
Hmm.
People didn't really understand me why I was so standoffish because I've always had a spirit of discernment, and that's just since I was a kid. I would tell people, that's not my crowd. That's not who I need to be around. But those same individuals, I was in school for many years. It was just like, they watched my growth as I watched their growth as well. So, they were able to see, okay, that's a great guy, and I was also able to see, okay, that person is changing when I may have thought, okay, that's not my crowd, you know. And college does, it makes you grow up because you out there fending for yourself in a lot of aspects, and coming from a different background and coming to an area where there's different other backgrounds as well, because I'm not the only one that had to move far from home to come to a place for education. It was just like, be myself so people can see my authentic, my authentic spirit, because my spirit will connect with them before I personally do,
Hmm.
you know. And that's goes back to when I say I have a spirit of discernment. I'm pretty sure other people have a spirit of discernment. So if I'm not being myself, maybe they can pick up on that. Maybe they say, "Oh, he's just trying to fit in." So that's just what I did. I was myself. I spoke with clarity, and I make sure that I showed that I was intelligent. That I didn't have to be something that I wasn't. I've always was fierce and strong headed. So my mind. You can't change my mind when I know who I am, and I've always known who I was because my parents, they instilled life in us. They always spoke highly of us. They always told us, what you think of yourself, just understand that other people can always think worse.
Hmm.
So if you don't know who you are and you only listening to what other people are saying, that's going to become who you are because that's what you're going to be
That's
focused on.
true.
Wherever your focus is, that's what you become.
So tell me this:
Wow.
how did you balance off being a Florida boy, coming all the way to Alabama, with all the temptations of the female persuasion? How did you handle all of that attention? When
Well,
you was running
At a
around with, yeah,
HBCU.
and you was running around with them
that's
little
that's
tights on and everything,
that's
and everybody like said hi.
And he was a champion, conference champion.
that's a good question. Ever since I was a kid, I was, it's kind of hard to even put this into context, but they always consider me the ladies' man, and I'm one of those ones. I don't mind putting you in check. Say, hey, you my friend. Just leave it at that, because people knew I was school, track. Those were my focuses. Whatever time I had after that is what you got. So I had my friends here and there, but it was just more so keeping my focus. I did have a girlfriend. She actually came to Alabama. She graduated high school a year after me. She followed me out there. We dated or whatever, but I didn't, it didn't work out because of the fame that came behind who I was as a student athlete. I was very known on campus, not just for track. People knew I could sing,
Hmm.
stuff like that. And I was just a people's person. My spirit just attracted people as is, whether it's homeboys, homegirls,
Hmm.
however they came. My spirit just attracted people. And, I don't say that arrogantly. It's just more so of it goes back to my foundation. I know who I am. I know what I should be doing and what I shouldn't be doing. I was myself, and I was free spirited to it, where I didn't have to worry if a person liked me because my spirit. They say when you got a good spirit, it'll always attract other good spirits. When you got a bad spirit, it's going to always attract bad spirits. So the good spirited people, they were coming. They were showing me the love that either I deserved or love that just was in them to give to me, to where I was founded in. The support, the love, that I can go on and wake up the next day and go to class and say, man, these people out here love me. I'm walking in class, people, what's up, bro? How you doing? Da-da. Just meeting different people, it just kept me rooted and, don't be chasing things that, could walk away tomorrow. Don't be chasing things that, I can't really just genuinely benefit from. I've never been the one. My mom and dad always said, don't chase nobody. Be who you are, the ones that's gonna be for you, gonna be there. So
Right.
that just was my balance. I didn't chase it. It wasn't nothing that I had to chase in a sense, but it wasn't a priority for me.
And being at HBCU is so special in that you have so many kids that are from the church like us.
Hmm.
How was it with the gospel choirs and just the church scene and all that kind of stuff? Because people may not have experienced what we experienced being at HBCU because it was such a wonderful experience for me that I'll never forget. Lifelong friends.
Well, I didn't really get to partake in a lot of, especially within on campus. I've listened to the gospel choir sing at like the classic and stuff like that, but the track team in my tenure of being at Alabama A&M, we were just so school track, find time to rest until homecoming came or the classic came. That's when we really got to explore the extra activities and stuff like that. So I'm gonna be honest, I didn't really get to really fulfill the. I didn't really get to see that a lot as I would have because I was operating as an athlete,
Hmm.
trying to still balance being at church because when we were traveling, I didn't get to go to church as much. I had to watch it online and stuff like that. So, you know, when the season was over and I did go to church, I was going to Convergence Worship Center, where Pastor AD was the pastor there, but now Candy West is the pastor there. So that's where I was attending when I could go. But it was, I wish now that I'm looking back, I wish I could have experienced it because I get to partner with them with a lot of events that I host now. The A&M Gospel Choir, they come and sing at, events that I have. And Mr. Courtney, he sings at different churches around. He takes the choir around. So I'm getting to experience it now as alumni
So
more than it than when I was there.
so let's talk about this new cut that we have on you, and what brought it about. And did you write it, or did someone else write it for you?
It was like a 2 and 2. So my big bro Ricky Miller, he's a choir maestro. He wrote the it was like a declaration, all of my needs, and we used to sing it with his choir, but all we sung was all of my needs. So I wrote 2 verses on it and added on. But for him, I can't necessarily speak on the season of life where God gave him those words. But for myself, it was more so in when I had my son, my first child, I'm not gonna say I was lost because I had great guidance. I had a father figure that showed me the way of life, and being a father, it was just in that aspect of it being new. And sometimes I did get discouraged, wondering if I was doing the job the correct way. So focused on being a father that I forgot about myself. And I know God honors a father that takes care of his kids. So I didn't have to worry. I didn't have to fear because my God is an awesome God. That's the lyrics. Um, it came about in just a season of asking God. What is it that you need me to do? What is it you want me to do? Where am I supposed to go? And He was basically just showing me, get out your head. I got it under control. I just need you to be who you're called to be, and you know who you're called to be because you wouldn't be walking in the direction that you're going. So, I had to cast all my cares upon Him and let Him show me that all of my needs are met. I can go to work and not worry if I'm going to make enough money. I can go to church and know that I can go hang out with my friends and know that my bills will be paid and my kids will be taken care of. I got food on the table. However, I needed my needs to be met. God would do it long as I was lining up with His will and operating in the way in a God spirited way. So, that's how that came about. You know, I've written a lot of other songs, but this song was actually given to me because it was a song that I led with the choir, and I was just like, I could do something with that. With my moments, my intimate moments that I have with God. I'm sitting in my studio right now, and one day, one night, I sit up, have late night worship sessions, and just talk to God, and He gives me, tools and words and things to put together just to help myself express my gratitude towards Him. So that's really how it came about.
So how can people follow you, check in with you, book you? How can they connect with you?
You can go on my Facebook page, Alex Ward. As a new artist, I haven't really put together I have a manager. That's my mother-in-law. Her name's Tawana Green. And you can reach out to me and I can put you in contact with her because we haven't did all the business oriented things that I should have already together. And that's, charging to my brand. I've been real busy. But you can reach out to me. I'm going to actually be putting together like a link tree thing that you can click on and book and fill out a form and stuff like that. But you can find me on Facebook at Alex Ward. It's a picture of me. You can find me on Instagram. It says official Alex Ward. It's a lot of Alex Wards around, so make sure you can see my face on my Instagram. You will see my single on my Facebook. You will see my single as well. So those are the ways you can contact me, or you can just email me at bookalexward@gmail.com, and
Now,
somebody from my family or myself will get back with you.
now let me ask you a question. When you made your mother-in-law your manager, did your mama call you up and say, "Now, baby, I was your first love. Now, what happened?"
Nah, I'm gonna be honest with you. My mama's still raising two of my younger siblings,
Uh,
and she far away, so it's kind of hard for us to do business together over the phone. Where a lot of people that book me are in the Alabama, Mississippi, the surrounding Atlanta, Georgia area, where And my mother-in-law, she's in a gospel recording group. They call it the Grace Sisters. It's a quartet group, so they're pretty known, and she does it for them as well. So she's kind of understanding of that realm of business. So it was just an easier route for me to go until I get very well established to where I can be better business oriented. So I got to be real with myself. I don't want to just throw myself out there spending buku money to put
Yes,
together
wisdom.
you know, yeah. So
Yeah.
that's just the route I took. But
I,
my
I,
mama, she's very understanding, but she'll still impart wisdom into me in any direction that I need. So
Yeah,
that's
I
just
could imagine her daughter saying, "Now, Mama, now you gotta do better on the bookings, so that we can get better."
right.
So, Mama, go on do that right now.
You, I would encourage you to connect with the gin in your area, and I'm gonna um, try to find the person for you in that area because that Gen conference you should try to be at. You're an independent artist, and there are so many movers and shakers in that particular building. And with your spirit and with the quality of music that you do, I believe it'll be a win-win for you. Even Dr. LT will be there representing the San Diego area, and there'll be so many others from all across the country. So I think that would profit you to go there and to minister and to get to know people because you have a great future ahead. This industry is about networking and connecting with people.
Gotcha. Yes, sir. I appreciate that.
Well, with that being said, if you'll introduce your song, and we will then play it for the people today.
My song is titled "All of My Needs" by me, simply Alex Ward. I pray that it blesses you all.
And this is Alex Ward, and the song's called "All of My Needs Are Met" right here on God Radio 1.
.com.